a delivery driver bringing beer down to San Diego, and he thought he was doing a drug deal in the parking lot.
From a clandestine late-night parking lot handoff with Russian River to completely flipping the script on how we build beer recipes, Yeast is the ultimate engine of craft beer. White Labs founder Chris White recently sat down to share some incredible brewing history, starting with his original painful lessons.
I didn't really like the way that fermented. I didn't really like the way that flocculated or tasted. So I developed this 21-day process that we still use today. And it was really about being patient. So instead of, 10-hour, 12-hour, 24-hour step-ups, most of our step-ups between stages are 48 hours. And I feel that really develops the cell bigger, the cell wall material, the cell membrane material bigger, better packaged DNA, and it leads to big fat cells that ferment better, they have higher viability for longer, and they have more repitching ability. Yeast labs around the world will do 24 to 48 hours. If you want speed, you can go faster. If you want to develop good cells, you go 48 hours. They're done in 12 to 24, but there's a starvation that happens that helps pack the walls better and the membranes. Starvation is actually kind of important in that yeast cycle. They store some glycogen. So certainly the last steps, but we do every step 48 hours, every step. And I would recommend that. And what's a few more days?
But mastering cell health is only half the battle. To understand that biology dictates flavor, Chris looks back on how historical beer styles didn't actually choose their yeast, but local yeast chose their style.
They weren't thinking, I need to make a wheat beer, what strain should I use? That was the strain they had. The lager strains, the stout strains, the pale ale strains were different in more the south than versus north in Yorkshire and stuff. So these strains were developed around these styles. So if you want to make a certain style now, one of the things that makes sense is to use a strain. That's what you do, right? And so when you look at the menu downstairs and you see that we're taking one batch of beer and putting it into two fermenters, like you can do in homebrew, right? That's what I did in homebrew, so I just started replicating it in our brewery. It's not a batch made today and a batch made tomorrow with different yeasts. That's what most breweries can do because their fermenters are bigger than their brew house. Our fermenters are smaller than our brew house, so we just split it. And we use different yeasts. Flipping it is a mind game because when we have meetings that Kevin's here about what beers to make, we were thinking, okay, what styles to make? Well, I'd even say, what yeast strains do you want to use in the brewery? What style can that make? So we're here, we can over-exaggerate that the yeast is defining the style. We're getting more and more into this, but it's kind of a fun flip. And then you get to malt, then you get to hops. And he's got all the yeasts to pick that exists in the brewing world, right? So you can start with yeast. But we made something that could be an ESB or a red ale. And so we were trying to decide, should it be called an ESB or a red ale? And if you have the beer downstairs, I think you'll agree with Kevin, it's really more of an ESB. It's not really red, but a red ale-like. But so after he brewed, he's like, it's really more of an ESB. And I said, well, if we use 002 English ale yeast, that defines it as extra special bitter. That's the yeast that makes an ESB. So let's call that one an ESB. And we use more of a West Coast yeast, 041, I believe, in the red, Pacific ale yeast. And we called that a red. So we're putting these menu names as styles based on the yeast we used. So even though we've been doing this brewery for 14 years, we sort of took another little step into the yeast creates a style.
So before wrapping up his talk, I had to ask Chris about his legendary craft beer rumor. Did White Labs get its start through a clandestine late-night parking lot handoff with the founder of Russian River, Vinny Chirluzzo?
Russian River, yeah, Vinny Chirluzzo, he started Blind Pig Brewery. He wanted to make these IPAs, and he loved California ale yeast. It worked great for IPAs, and he was maybe the first to make a double IPA, the Pliny. And anyway, he would drive down. I was still at UCSD at the time. This is before he moved north and became Russian River and all that. But when he was at Blind Pig, he would drive down. He would call me from the gas station at the bottom of the hill because we didn't have cell phones, and the phone would ring in the lab, and I would go downstairs and give him the yeast. And then we didn't think that was funny until he had a delivery driver bringing beer down to San Diego, and he thought he was doing a drug deal in the parking lot, you know. But it was just a yeast transfer.
Czech lagers. Lagers are hot right now, and the Czech ones seem especially challenging for brewers.
Well, I think Czech lagers, the brewers do a lot of different things, actually, and that we can expand on that in the interview. But one of the biggest myths are that Czech lagers can have diacetyl. And judging panels think this, and other things. It's because some Czech beers have diacetyl. But there's a reason for that. Czech brewers traditionally did not do a diacetyl rest, meaning a temperature raise. So they left the temperature cold, and even sometimes made it colder, along with a 90-day, 3-month maturation. And they had a certain gravity that they would do that at, and all these things. But that 3 months reduced the diacetyl potential, so the traditional beers didn't have diacetyl, unless it was contamination and serving and old scale stuff. Now, a lot of bigger Czech breweries do 30 days. So there's diacetyl without a higher temperature diacetyl rest. So as somebody trying to make Czech lagers, if you don't want to replicate the 90 days maturation, you can also still replicate the low diacetyl potential with current brewing techniques.
So if I were to go to Pilsner or Kel, and I'm looking forward to doing that one day, you're saying there's no diacetyl if I have one right there off the cask at the brewery?
No, there can be, because they do 30 days.
Ah.
But Budvar still sticks with the 90 days in the south, and some of the other breweries. And you will never have diacetyl notes beers that stick in 90 days.
Oh, okay. Well, now let's take it one step further. So I got this, brewed it one time, it was perfect. I saved the yeast, or I repitch it. Tried it again. Man, that beer was great. Did it third time, not so great. What is the myths, or what's the secret for repitching?
Well, Doug, actually what you said there is very interesting, because if you're noticing at the third generation it doesn't repitch good, that's said sometimes because that's the magic number for it not working. Say you don't get...
Some of us know that from experience.
Well, if you don't give the yeast what it sort of needs to stay healthy, you can go through generations. You can repitch and repitch, but by the third time, it's sort of done. If you give yeast what it needs, you can go way past 3.
So I mistreated my yeast.
Yes. So it's not the yeast itself, it's small things. And one of the most easiest thing to go past third generation is collect the yeast earlier. We've worked with some breweries on this.
Krausening?
No, just instead of collecting it when the beer is done, say fermentation is done, collect it 2 or 3 days earlier. It's still at the bottom, and the viability will be higher. So if you're collecting higher viability yeast, you're going to be able to be pitched more. So we simply tell some breweries, collect earlier, and they come back and say, oh my gosh, now I'm repitching great. So that's one of the things that can be done. Collect the yeast earlier, because remember, yeast, even Czech lagers and all these things, they were always harvested from the top in our history because fermenters were open. And you were collecting yeast in the first few days. Sure. Very high viability, perhaps poor cleanliness, contamination issues with open fermentation back then. So we moved to closed fermenters, and even in homebrew were small and closed. But now the yeast is in that beer a lot longer. We're pushing it all the way to the bottom. And when it's at the bottom, there's no reason that's the bottom anymore. Like, it's not doing anything. So collect it. Collecting it early. And one of the myths is if you collect it earlier, collecting early flocculating yeast. I probably wrote that. Other people wrote that. It's what we've always wrote, but I don't think it's true anymore. I think that's your best yeast. Yes, do a couple of yeast dumps early with the troop, first few days. But collecting early allows you to repitch from hazy beers. that allows you to repitch from other beers. Like, you don't have to wait for all the yeast to be there to get it. You just need enough for the next generation. You might be able to even get enough for 2 beers, but you will get yeast instead of 82% viability or so. You might get 97% viability by collecting it 1 or 2 days earlier.
So back to Czech lagers, 90 days maturation period. That'll minimize the diacetyl. And you're saying the best Czech brewers don't have any diacetyl. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? In your opinion?
My opinion, yes.
And to keep it rolling, make sure you've got especially viable yeast, concentrating especially beyond that 3rd generation or 2nd generation.
Yes.
Okay.
Collected early.
We're going to talk about this more online, and we're here at White Labs to check out some of the beers and also a class. Cheers.